All right. Well, here we are again.
Awesome music.
Yep. The Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Second show.
No, this is definitely way past the second show.
Well, way past.
We're like 15 shows in. We're still debating.
Right about
Yeah.
second show.
So I'm
Is that
Derek.
we finally the second
I think
show?
so. It got
Here
kind
in
of
the
old.
studio.
Man. Bypassed it last time and then realized I didn't want to get excited about talking about it again.
It's
so.
an event.
Yeah, it is. This is show number 2. It took us like 3 or 4 months to get here. This is officially our second show. I don't think I can be heard because I'm small.
Jamie,
Significant. Can I be heard?
you've always got the greatest pillow talk.
Jamie, is
The
pillow talk?
smooth
That's
silence
actually
of
kind of...
Jamie.
The whispers
small
aren't
and
being heard.
insignificant.
Yeah. All right. So,
That turns
January.
people on, I'm sure.
We are loving it. And by the way, congratulations, Vermont. Yes, legalization through legislature. First time ever in the United States of America. 9th state to become legal for adult use just this week. Signed by the governor.
And done right on the heels of Jeff Sessions' bizarre obstructionist move to rescind the Cole memo.
Sit on a shaft, Sessions. That's what I say.
There you go.
That'll be a good soundbite for us to grab later. Sit on a
And not
shaft.
only is Rick in studio with us, and of course Derek
Hello.
at the helm, and Chris
Tried to
joining us
introduce
is
Hello,
regularly now these days. Deborah being here.
So
Hey, everybody.
We're joined in studio now by Zara Abbas.
Hey, everybody.
nice.
How you doing?
Welcome.
I'm good.
Very good. And we might hear from, or Colin McDougall might make it by in a little bit as well and personally join the conversation. But
It's always good to have a lively,
very happy to have you here.
lively studio audience.
Yes.
You know it. I have to say, too, that when we start talking about monumental efforts, Vermont doing it through the legislature being a big one, Sessions changing things, too, we are in some amazing times right now. And I believe that future generations will look back on this podcast. They'll probably laugh a lot because we're funny and also because we're old. But, you know, they'll look back and they'll say these guys were chronicling the change that happened during that time. And it was an important period for marijuana law reform.
Very cool.
So
I was just speaking with attorney Michael Camoran before the beginning of this broadcast. We may get a chance to hear from him, schedule permitting,
that's
later on today. And, of course, of the Planet Green Trees show, which is the show that got things started is
Thursday night.
for me anyway, and very happy to
8 to
go
10
back
Thursday
on every
night,
once in a while.
folks.
And that's going to be a good one too.
Mhm.
I've seen some of the previews, some of the ideas of that show coming up. Some veterans and some other really good people calling in. Some really doing a good run on candidates lately and having them give their views. And we're going to do a little bit of that today also with Sri Thalandar, gubernatorial
Tanandar.
candidate. How's it?
Tanandar.
Tanandar, sorry. He mentioned when I heard him speak on Saturday night that he had to teach people how to say his name. So
Right.
hopefully he's not too offended, but Shri works.
People
and
will learn it.
Mm-hmm.
and I really liked his platform, and I liked his anti-establishment views, and he's putting his money up and see what he can do. And he said some pretty cool things, and I'm going to ask him about that today when he calls in toward the end of the
Tell
show.
the listeners what Saturday night was.
Saturday night was one of a series of MI Legalized networking events, and those have worked out very well to bring a lot of people together to network a little bit and talk about the emerging industry and some of the changes in law in general and to help support legalization. And went to one in Detroit the next night, which was also crowded and had some really good presentations and information offered. And there's one coming up in Novi on Saturday night, and I'll be in the UP in Traverse City thereafter. So Sam Pernick is setting these things up all over the state.
I just heard from Sam today to confirm our location for Saturday night's event. That'll be a District 11 candidate forum. It won't necessarily be a debate per se, but it will be an opportunity for each one of the candidates to give their position on the issues facing marijuana law reform in Michigan today, the MMFLA program, medical marijuana and its future, the legalization issue, the adult use and the CRMLA proposal, the Jeff Sessions issue. And if you are so inclined, you can come and ask them about what they would do to protect caregivers, because caregivers seem to be an embattled group of people at this point. So lots of opportunity for you to talk to people and help shape their opinion on the issues that matter to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Zara, thanks for joining us in studio today. You want to tell people a little bit about yourself so that they know who belongs to that wonderful voice of yours?
Thank you. My name is Zahra, and I became involved in cannabis after I started using it for my seizures. Before the cannabis, I had no control over my epilepsy. I would have seizures almost daily, even after having brain surgery and being on multiple medication. And once I started cannabis, I immediately became seizure-free, and now I'm over 1,000 days seizure-free and going off my last medication.
It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yay.
Yep. So 1,000 days seizure-free now?
Yeah, 1,016. But
That's incredible.
But who's counting?
Fantastic. You know, that's longer than many people are, you know. Many people have relationships. It's longer than some people's cars last nowadays, considering the pothole situation here in Michigan in the
It's
wintertime.
the worst.
Again, I know.
So it's an amazing story, and it's one of those that can't be ignored. Even if regular science finds it inconvenient to have their dogma challenged by the real world experiences that we see all the time with cannabis and its healing properties, we have to keep throwing it in their face until they finally admit that maybe there's some wiggle room in their theories
It's
for
the
a new
reality
way to
of
look at it.
The real people,
I know.
not just made up stories.
We have so many
Right.
examples here in
Yeah.
Michigan. Then you can look at some of the national stories, Cassie Hyde and some of the others. You know, Charlotte that inspired the Charlotte's Web strain. All of those people. We have so many videos on YouTube of patients telling their stories of healing. It outnumbers the number of people on YouTube telling how drugs are terrible and are destroying society. So,
That's true, man.
Yep.
It's terrible.
well, and we'll have to live in a Trump and conservative Republican dominated world for the next few years. So it just means there'll be an opportunity for people like William Duncan Schuette and Donald James Trump to continue to push for greater enforcement of existing drug laws and not modification of laws and right-sizing our drug war so that we can focus on something more significant that's actually killing people as opposed to something that's a victimless, harmless substance. So it's incumbent upon us to be informed, and that's what Jazz Cabbage Cafe is all about.
Yep. We're going to be talking about some other pretty cool things today on the show. Of course, we're going to get into some things like events coming up in the next week, in the next month.
Got some news.
It's important, too. We got some important ones coming
We're
up.
going
Not so
to be talking more to Sahara, too, about
That's going to be...
she gets involved in a lot of different things that help people out and some of those activities. And are you getting politically involved, too, in this environment?
Yeah, mainly with Dana Nessel's campaign and Abdullah Said's
Nice.
campaign.
And we'd like to promote her every chance we get over
Yes,
here, so we'll talk
second,
about
we're
that,
Yeah,
too.
Data.
we
Yeah.
definitely need that. So
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I hate to put you on the spot, but could you tell everybody how old you are?
I'm 31.
Okay. So what we're talking about here is someone who, who's
Dang, Rick.
who existed
Yeah,
who existed
wow.
in the Michigan community. Tell me whether I'm wrong or not. You existed in Michigan before you used cannabis, and you had a certain mindset about cannabis up until that
Yes.
point, and then you started changing, and that's kind of epitomizes the evolution that a lot of people in that age range are going through right now too.
Absolutely.
Some people that came out of collegiate years or maybe skipped collegiate years, and they developed a sort of an attitude about things, and now they're seeing all of the examples around them, and they're still able to change. Try and change the mind of some 70-year-old man who's done nothing but watch Fox News for 30 years. I mean, I know Fox News hasn't been around for 30 years, but you get my point, right?
And I'm sure
with you.
you've either you've changed the views of many people around you who have seen you benefit from using cannabis. Have you also inspired others to try to use cannabis who might not have?
Yeah, I have. I've spoken to people who are either against it or afraid of it, and I talked to them about my journey and like how to look for examples and things, because, I mean, especially the ones who grew up around the DARE program, it was like, you tried this once, and that's it, you're on to other drugs and things. So,
How did your family first react?
it was actually my parents that wanted me to start on it, even though I was against it, because they had
okay.
seen, like, stories from Colorado and things, and, but, like, my dad had a different view about it than I did, but, so he actually wanted me to move to Colorado.
Your dad's a real progressive guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I ended up having the brain surgery instead of going to Colorado. And then about a year and a half after brain surgery, my doctor was like, we should try this now because I was out of medications, and the only other option was a second brain surgery. So I did try it, and I was seizure free within like maybe 2 days or something, and then. But because I had just started on a new medicine, also, I didn't know if it was like all about the cannabis. But then when I went to DC, after having been seizure free for 3 months, I had a seizure there and broke my hand. So I was like, so now I know how much the cannabis was working.
Oh, because you were cannabis free in D.C.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't travel with it. Yeah.
You know, and this is one of the ways we're seeing laws evolve, but some ways are still in old school. The TSA, transportation.
Yeah.
You know,
It depends what you're carrying with you. We've discussed this before too, but think of somebody who's very ill and is traveling, or maybe has to go out of state for some kind of family function, and they can't take their medicine with them. What are they supposed to do?
Right.
I know many people do now, but you still have to be very careful. And the different states you're going into with the different laws, it's confusing and it's disturbing.
Well, the history of marijuana law reform has included confusing, disturbing things, including the Michigan law, which says, you can either grow it yourself or buy it directly from your caregiver, but yet we still allow people from other states to come into Michigan and utilize cannabis. What are they, magically pulling it out of a rabbit's hat or something, So we've had incremental change, but sometimes incremental change means that there are dysfunctional parts of what we've done that need to be fixed later. We just had a bill 5144 passed in the Michigan House that supposedly fixes a bunch of problems with the MMFLA program, recognizing that isn't even a fully implemented program, and they already had to put a bill out to fix the stuff.
You got to fix the fix, and then go back in and fix the fix that fix that fix.
And if you couldn't get people to accept what you wanted the first time it got passed, you'll get what you really want when we put in the fix language.
Exactly.
Yeah,
When you
we've
slide
seen
it
that
in the
before.
sly.
Of course, I'm still sour on the legislature, from way back at Senate Bill 660 and the Prairie Plant Systems Pot for Pharmacies bill, and that was bought and paid for by, a Canadian company, and they came in and they took a bunch of legislators and important decision makers up to Canada and shopped them around, showed them a big marijuana farm and everything else, and how we're allowing that type of influence peddling to take place in our society and still think that we're passing laws that have fairness and legitimacy at their core. It's difficult. I want to believe so badly, but I've seen so many things that cause me to be skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sleep with one eye open.
Well, and I think it's important for us as advocates and also as watchdogs of our own government to remain active and to remain with our eyes open,
Vigilant at all times.
and vocal. Because you can see a problem, but if you don't say anything about it, then what good was you seeing it in the first place? All you did was give yourself anxiety and hate towards government. But when you share that, then it's actually a move towards improvement. It's not just grousing about something that you can't control. I read a quote the other day, the difference between a legitimate complaint and someone bitching is, are you including a solution? If you're including a solution, that's a legitimate complaint. But if all you're doing is talking about the problem without offering any pathway to a better way, then it is sort of bitching.
Damn, Rick, that's insightful.
It wasn't me. I
Makes
saw
a lot
it.
of
from
sense.
someone else.
Certainly,
middle name.
one of the responses to the bizarre presidency and situation we've been in this last year is a lot more people, as evidenced by the most recent Women's March, are involved in advocacy and activism and standing up for things they believe in and responding and coming together, and that may show up in 2018 for us.
Piss enough people off, and they're going to come out of the house screaming, and that's what happened.
One of the things we'll talk about is the brand new poll that was just out that talked about 57% of Michiganders support legalization. And one of the telling statistics from that, when you start drilling down into the actual statistical data, is the number of Republicans that support. 43% of Republicans support legalization. So even within that party of opposition, we're almost at 50%. And another telling statistic is people that have smoked marijuana in their life are about, I don't remember the exact number, but about 80% likely to strongly support marijuana legalization. Because if you've had an experience with it, even if you don't currently smoke, it's not dangerous. They lied to us and still are. Jeff Sessions, you bad man. Somebody should wash that
voice
little dude's
scary
mouth
as
out.
hell.
Again,
Man.
speaking of the same thing, there's a lot of response to his ridiculousness, surrounding this issue. And
It's
5 minutes to recess. I just
Oh, man,
wanted to
we're
put that out there.
We're getting close to
we're
420.
getting close to 4:20. One of the benefits of having a show 4 to 6 p.m. is that it includes 4:20, so we take a few extra minutes and really kind of celebrate and let that soak in.
Right. And then the conversation's a lot easier after we come back from that break, actually. You may notice. So, but again, Vermont legalization taking place through the legislative process, that really is a pretty remarkable effort. Even though Vermont's a smaller state, you have to know, I mean, how difficult it is for some of those long-term hardcore conservatives that exist in every state to say, you know what, my power base will support this. I will vote in favor of legalization because my people want it, you know? So, goodness, it only takes one, and then we see a lot more. Because, frankly, about half of the states in the United States don't have the petition process. So the only way that they can get legalization is through their legislatures.
All right. So we have an update here just before the 420 break. Colin McDougall has come through with his threat to show up and join us in
We
studio.
couldn't have done our recess without him, so we would have had to
Yeah,
postpone
perfect timing.
420. So
You
I'm
don't
glad
have to really
made it.
do anything, but yet you get to hang out with us and have a lot of fun.
So, and here's a
You're
cool
welcome.
thing. Your shirt is awesome. What does it say, Colin? It says, legalize it, hash bash.
We both got that at Hash Bash. I think we bought it together.
That is
I don't know.
awesome.
I honestly found it at the MI Legalize office. It was in a box, and it
might
fit
be
me.
Mine. It might be mine because I can't
So you're
buy
admitting
mine.
to taking an
I hope-
auction item and
I
just
don't-
keeping it
Shirt
for
off
yourself.
of the
Okay.
video.
Don't think the two of you would fit the same shirt, but that's okay.
You actually deserve it. One of the things that Colin has done, and we'll talk to him more when we come back, obviously, is really helped out with the campaign and for both times around.
The 2016 and 2022.
And now maintains an interest in other, political arenas and things like that. And we'll hear about that a little bit too.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's do that 420
go.
thing.
We got to be getting pretty close.
Welcome
Love that
back.
shit.
Is this we're back? Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Yeah, you got to, tell them. This is the Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Thank you for listening. Hope you had a wonderful 420. We've got a full house today.
We're still hoping to get to Michael Camorn, attorney at law, one of our great medical marijuana and marijuana rights attorneys. And he tried to call, I guess. It didn't work out, so it's scheduled depending. Maybe we'll get him back on here in a minute or two.
If
and,
you're listening, Michael, call back.
we'll get his opinion on a few things and talk about his great show, Planet Green Trees.
Yeah. So, if he doesn't call, let's bring something else up. We had some great things going on here. Chris, introduce yourself a little bit.
What's up?
What's up, man?
Not much.
How we
So with you.
So it's Colin. It's Colin,
It's
right?
a routine.
Right, it's Colin.
Colin, man. Thank you for joining us. I didn't even get to see the shirt until you took off the jacket. Now,
Yeah,
now
isn't
I'm
it
fully
pretty cool?
aware. Everybody already knew what it was.
Apparently, he dresses out of the Lost and Found box at the MI
What?
Legalize office in Lansing.
Oh,
This is
Michael's
that we're-
calling. I'm about to
selections.
miss
Just
it
a
again.
couple
That's not a
dispensaries
resume
and
builder.
hash bash shirt.
That's not
All right,
a-
hello.
A
This
couple
is the
Michigan
Jazz
nobles.
Cabbage Cafe.
Michael Camorn, is this you? All right. How you doing, man?
Miguel.
Hey, Michael.
Doing very well. You sound like you're on the road.
No, just at the desk. Are we on air now?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
We're on the air now.
All right.
Live and broadcasting.
We have Zahara with us. We have Colin. We have Deborah. We have Rick Thompson. We have Chris. And we have Derek.
What's
all
up,
in
man?
studio right now.
And Jamie.
Well,
And Jane.
And
please
myself.
make sure you tell everyone I say hello, first and foremost.
Okay. Michael
And,
says hello.
Oh, okay, thanks, Michael.
We're all listening right now.
Let's do
so
it
we
all
heard
at
you.
once.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Well, tell. Make sure Deborah knows we're not counting this as cheating. We know that she's allowed to support
We-
both.
We talk about the Planet Green Tree show on here all
I've
the
been
time.
talking
We
about
give it
Planet Green
the
nonstop
credit
since-
that it is due, and it's very much appreciated in the archive that you've kept it.
I'm not cheating, Michael. I'm spying.
Oh,
That's what
right.
I'm doing.
No. I worked.
Well,
Well, she takes
Wait, hold
she
on,
takes
wait a
Planet Green Tree seriously. She just has fun over here.
Exactly.
Oh.
So
And they make me sit next to Chad.
we've been talking about a few things that we do. We would be interested in having you weigh in. Your views, immediate impact, things to look out for via the Jeff Sessions action to rescind the Cole memo. You had a great show not too long ago, just a few weeks ago, in which you discussed it at length, and several attorneys were around to chip in as well, and a lot of stuff came out. But just wondering to get your response on that.
well, as we do sometimes, we were taking in all the information. People were opining. I think, though, that the ultimate conclusion that many of the lawyers were coming to was has played out as pretty accurate, which is, unlike most times when the U.S. attorney makes a pronouncement or decrees some kind of policy change, it has meaning and teeth on it. Just the opposite seemed to happen with this Jeff Sessions, because people were like laughing at him. You know, you had people coming out of the, you know, in an odd way, it brought some continuity to many legislators federally who have joined together and put together different pieces of legislation. But it was rare historically, you know, his repealing of the Obama administration's policies back to 1980 was like rejected, and it directly had zero impact in the world or in the cannabis industry. Partly because the Rohrabacher Amendment still in place, and I understand was just recently renewed for till February 2nd or something, and February 8th. So it can't. So under the circumstance of his pronouncement, there still was not funds available to do what he wanted to accomplish. So there's like no teeth to it. And just as a side note, I know like all the people that are really upset was the federal agencies that didn't get noticed that are working in marijuana states, in medical marijuana states with the banking industry. They were the ones most upset because their day-to-day interactions with these entities, you know, they're the ones that were affected by it. They were, you know, basically pulled out of that. But there's been no impact on it, and ironically, and really the best way to avoid something like this happening in the future is that the legislature seemed to come together and there's some, you know, talk. I don't know what the reality of it is, but they're at least trying to have some protections for states' rights to employ these kind of programs and create regulated systems that you know, are benefiting them. So that was the fallout, and I think most of the analysis was accurate. But at the same time, you know, things can change. There's you know, the funding could be there. The Rohrabacher could not. I mean, you know, the fact that the Rohrabacher keeps getting, you know, re-signed as a rider, you know, is meaningful, I think. But
yeah, and the last time it passed, there was an extra little note slipped in, which seemed to reserve the right to ignore it if they felt they needed to at some point.
And these continuing resolutions are just a bad way to do government, Michael. You're right. It doesn't provide any permanency, and it doesn't really answer any long-term questions anybody has about this.
I mean, and I'm not saying. I mean, it's hard for me to even say this, but one could argue that the U.S. attorney's job is not to make policy decisions, to enforce the law. You know, the legislature is the one supposed to, like a federalist would say that, I guess, like Charlotte would.
Is
but
available? Is he available?
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. No. But you know, but it's true. Like that's the branch of government that makes laws of the legislature. That's, you know, and their failure to act is really equally to blame, if it's not more. You know, they're the ones that let this law remain in effect that they know is not true, and we could go on for days about why that is. But so that's I think the fault. But so who knows? I understand that there was a letter going around to all the state attorney generals from these various groups of legislatures trying to get attorney generals to sign off on the legislation. We support this legislation because we have a medical marijuana program in our state, and we need to be clear of federal interdiction. And I guess our current attorney general would sign it. Is that surprising?
What a surprise! Yeah.
Wow.
He's been notoriously absent in conversation on this, and this is a guy who made medical marijuana conversation his bread and butter in his campaign to become AG back in 2010.
Yep.
It's interesting, and so far in his campaign for governor, I haven't heard him get asked that question or have to respond. I know he said we'll let the people decide, but he hasn't had to really answer for what he's done over the last 8 years to the medical marijuana community.
No, he's demonstrated how important that position is to how this law gets properly implemented and respected by law enforcement and the rest of the system all the way down.
We'll have an
opportunity.
opportunity.
Sure does. And just as we're talking about the power of the U.S. attorney to implement policy, the states authorize the attorney general to write opinions, which are not binding in any court, but they are binding on the agencies that fall under that you know, the attorney general. So That's something that our Attorney General failed to do to help guide this, a fair implementation of the people's will. But
And Michael, the Attorney General's opinions he did issue were overwhelmingly overturned by higher court action. I mean, you documented these. We did the Planet Green Tree show. Every time this asshole would issue one of these things,
Well, not just cannabis.
you know,
all
we
of the
would talk
crap.
about
Yeah,
we'd talk about how wrong it was, and then sure enough, 6, 8, 10 months later, there'd be some kind of a court case that makes it all flipped around on its head.
all
You know
on
that.
all on the taxpayer dime.
absolutely.
You know, and we
And even
no, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
even the positions that he took in the amicus briefs in cases that he wasn't
Right.
involved in wrong. You know what I mean? I think he's like Tierbeck. Was another like
He just won't let go. He won't let go, and he will never admit he's wrong ever.
No
Yeah.
I
question.
will say this: don't tell anybody, but him and I did agree on a car being a private place where one could consume cannabis for legal purposes.
Well, I agree on that.
You know what, Mike? I want to
Me
get
too.
I want to get to back to the
I
Attorney
definitely
General
agree.
stuff for a minute, but isn't there supposed to be a case that Mary Chartier is involved in the Supreme Court that is going to make a decision about that?
What the vehicle?
Yeah.
That casino case?
You know, very well. That opinion is a Court of Appeals opinion. And that's what I was saying. Like the Attorney General wrote an opinion on this, and the law is, you know, like you have a right to privacy in your vehicle. It's different than your like garbage that you put on the street. If you were using legal concepts that have been identified as where you have a right to privacy and where you don't, and the government can't just go to your car. So it is a private place, and I mean, that's where we agree, but the Court of Appeals didn't, and that case may be before the Supreme Court. I don't know if it is pending, if it was appealed, or if they've accepted it. She may have filed an application. I don't know if it's been
Okay. Yeah.
been accepted.
Just wondering what the status is,
But I
but
will,
I think most of us agree with you.
Yep, I think so
I
too.
think so.
Hey, let's talk about another case too that just recently came down about usable and unusable marijuana. How many caregivers would that decision have exonerated if it was delivered in 2011 or 2012 instead of waiting till 2017 to do it?
You know, it's interesting because I was, you know, they've got this new, the state keeps being required to do these forfeiture reports and reporting on the state of affairs. I feel like I could do a report on the state of cases out of Comorian law. And if I took 100 cases and I was to break down why the individual was brought into or charged with felonies, I would say probably 40 to 50% of the cases involve the issue of, not dried marijuana or wet marijuana that is deemed, processed and placed in a bag and weighed, and that's the number that you have for your case. And so I would say many, and it's kind of, it's remarkable, I would say, that there's a way that the police had been doing it for, literally 7, 8 years, and then a decision comes down there's even prior decisions that were unpublished. Finally, a published opinion comes down, and it just stops that. Like all that, the difference of immunity and being felonized and forfeited upon, and house torn up, and all of that was right there. Like there's no debate. It's been there all along. It just took 8 years for a court to decide, and what they said was, what part about dried is not clear in the statute? If it's not dried, it doesn't count. It's that simple. And I think every one of the medical cannabis community, lawyers, patients, caregivers, know what that means. But the facade was that this was a gotcha that they got to decide. They get to decide this. Is that wet or dry? Well, we're going to decide, and you lose your immunity. It's the most unfair, totally dishonest, and really a tragedy the way that was handled with the implementation. It's still going on. You still have some of these agencies looking for, trying to identify any kind of nuance of nonconformity, and it's remarkable because they don't exist, and it's too bad it's taken that long to fix it.
Hey, here's another thing to consider. It used to be when we first started out in this 10 and 11 and 9, the Michigan State Police used to issue these guidelines, these letters, and they would issue them to all law enforcement agencies telling them how to change their enforcement policy once a new court decision came down, which changed the way that we interpreted the Medical Marijuana Act. Since this new court case about dried and undried cannabis, have you heard of or seen any directive coming from a position of authority in the state directing law enforcement to do things differently than they have been?
No, you're talking about what are the Michigan State Police legal updates.
Right.
When there's opinions that come down that affect them, if it's like a Fourth Amendment, like search and seizure, they'll update them, or some parts of the law.
Right.
And there's been several written regarding medical marijuana, and but none about this. And I remember at the time, I think it was 2011, shortly after shooting came into office, the Judiciary Committee had met. They were considering all of these amendments, and the PAM's Representative Kim Stecker gave a presentation on the state of affairs. A lot of patients and caregivers testified. And I remember distinctly some representative from the Michigan State Police was testifying and was asked by Representative Horn, in light of the definition of usable marijuana, has the Michigan State Police taken a position? And that person said no. That answer, let this confusion reign of something that really shouldn't have been confusing. And if they simply would have said, yes, it's got to be dried, or given some notice to the people that were listening and watching, so some advice could be given of how to manage that. It seems unbelievable that someone could be in compliance with the law by having 12 plants locked in and closed in a facility. They cut 2 of them down. All of a sudden, they break the law. And along the way and process to creating, medicine, it's patently outrageous, and almost you have to think in a sadistic way to interpret it that way. And it is. It's been a shame that that the original question was how many people's cases would have been different. I would say, many, and I think the statistics for all the forfeiture proceeds over the last years would probably be reduced by quite a lot as well.
So, Mike, I want to get back to the AG discussion for a minute before we wrap this up, and discuss the fact that we have an opportunity to get somebody in there. We know that it's a very crucial position, and depending on who is in there, it can be an obstructionist or can help get things implemented properly. And you've been backing Dana Nessel and from the beginning, and have helped out with giving her a lot of information about this issue and fundraising for her and promoting her when you can. Can you describe to people how important it is to have somebody like Dana Nessel be our next Attorney General moving forward?
Well, you alluded to it earlier that all that we're talking about was accomplished by the Attorney General. He was the most outspoken public official against it, the 2008 voter initiative, and when he got into office, he did everything he could to destroy it. And I put less blame on the law enforcement community because they were not trained, given no education how to look at things differently, and they're relying upon their original training, which per se contraband, So the importance of how the police reacted is directly related to the leading law enforcement official, and that is why that position is so critical for the implementation of legalization. And Dana Nessel is the only person, and I don't like political candidates, but she is the only person I've ever seen embrace legalization the way that she is. She's not only outspoken about it and has experiences that she shares from medical perspective, people in her family. I'd say that even against her advisor's wishes, if you go to her website, you will see a big pot leaf. And there's no attorney generals you're going to find running for the state position who are doing that. It's just not something you would normally see. And it just shows you her commitment to it, and that it's not something she's hiding, it's not something she's changing her position on. She has a position. She'll tell you she wants legalization. She'll tell you that we got to stop talking about, we have to start talking about the opioid crisis that exists in our country and leave people that are smoking marijuana alone. The focus is in the wrong place. And this is something that resonates, for a lot of people, and maybe it's been taboo. Maybe it's the reality of the tragedy of all these overdoses that are taking place, the ongoing, addictions associated with, pain management. It's resonating, and I think, it's time. We needed leaders or people running for office to take that position, and she's the first one out there embracing it in a meaningful way. And I believe her. I mean, and I don't think I maintain she's the real deal, and the power and authority that goes along with that position, she is taking seriously in its implementation and its application for viewing the world differently after 2018 or 2019 when she would take office. And it's important that we have someone there so this conversation is different. Can't just change the law and not have someone that's going to talk policy different. Can't go through that again. It'll be too disingenuous to the voters who will pass legalization. We actually have set up a PAC, super PAC. It's on the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association website. It's called, what is it?
Putting Patients First.
Putting Patients First. If people are interested in
Michigan Medical Marijuana Association.org. Right?
We'll have a donation button on there.
Donation button for our super PAC if you're interested.
It's on that site. Okay.
Right. So that is the website, Michigan Medical Marijuana Association.org, and it is a super PAC. What was that name? Patients First. Is that right?
Putting Patients First.
Nice.
That's the name of the PAC. Super PAC.
So I think that it appears as though Dana embracing cannabis in a sensible way and taking advantage of what the majority thinks about it is working out for her, and that her Democratic opponent not being prepared to answer simple questions about it and perhaps being dishonest of his treatment about it while being a federal prosecutor is not working out very well for him.
Well, there's been many occasions he's been caught on tape making statements that just were not true.
And this is
And I think
Patrick
that's
Miles,
because-
by the way.
Yes.
We do not like him. We like
him.
Dana. We do not like Patrick. For Dana, against Patrick.
Dana good, Pat is bad.
Wow.
This is all politics, and he may appeal to some people for whatever reasons. I think on this topic in particular, he has been disingenuous. He's been on video proclaiming that his prosecution of medical marijuana patients was for reasons other than marijuana, and that's simply not true. And we know the people that he prosecuted,
We do.
and he can't hide from that.
No.
And he's made some outrageous statements of things that are, I don't know, not based in fact. Just crazy things of the cannabis causes
The gummy bear.
people to,
THC.
or the potency. He's making the potency arguments. It's not your, Woodstock.
He doesn't
marijuana,
understand
whatever.
it. He wasn't prepared.
Doesn't understand.
And it's an
Doesn't
important
understand.
issue in 2018 in Michigan.
But
You
if
have
your
to be
default
prepared.
argument is standard drug war hysteria, that's a really bad sign.
And you have
Very-
a history
it's
of
very old
putting
school. And if
state-compliant
Yeah.
marijuana
If the Democrat-
participants in federal prison.
If Michigan Democratic Party thinks that moving forward we keep these dinosaurs around, they are in for a rude awakening.
Yes. 2018 is a year.
He also takes the position now that we should wait for the federal government to act. If he was our attorney general right now, the program wouldn't go forward. He would be embracing
Right.
the Sessions world. That's the kind of thing
Exactly.
that I think.
It's so old school. It's ridiculous.
And,
for
and if
Michigan.
maybe some
Yeah.
people do isolate this issue, as you say, they may like him for other reasons. But if he's being blatantly dishonest about this, what other issues and what other things he's being dishonest about? And it's just not an
Right.
astute candidate not to be prepared to deal with this issue in some way.
Certainly not from a Democrat, which we assume to be people who, are the party that reins in law enforcement, not the party that lets law enforcement use us like a doormat.
Or the second or third or fourth time you ask the question, you're still not prepared.
Right.
Maybe the first time they catch you off guard, but
So anyway, we do not like him. is what
He
it comes
also underestimated the importance of this issue in his campaign, which is evidenced by him being so not prepared.
He's not an astute
And-
candidate. I
It's in his
agree.
own words.
Yeah.
Just on the surface.
And those people are manipulated by power. When you put somebody like that into an office like Attorney General, somebody who's never held public office before, they can easily be overcome by all the trappings of superiority and also the standard influences. They talk about the whole deep state in Washington, D.C. We absolutely have a deep state here in the state of Michigan. Those unelected people that run the lobbying offices, the high-powered attorneys' offices, that run all of the different departments that seem to remain in position no matter who's in the governor's chair, those people, they want things done a certain way. And if you're not as strong as Dana Nussel is, then you're probably going to get snowed under by those long-term influences, and no real change will happen. And we need change. We need change.
Rick, one really minor point you made, I want to play devil's advocate with you. But before I do, I want to say that the position you took is consistent with Chad Carr. You and him agree on this so strongly, and I must argue with both of you because you're both agreeing to this. And it goes like this. The Democrats haven't done anything to reform or pull in law enforcement. And let me point out that, what's his first name? Placido, Republican, I think he voted for Trump, okay, is leading the charge of forfeiture reform. I don't know, I mean, there's a couple Democrats that we know and love that used to, but I don't know, these bills are getting passed and there's no reform, you know what I mean? So I just, and that was just for the sake of academic debate. But, so, and I don't know that that's true anymore. The parties are not the dictators of this. And I think that's the thing, like, I don't know, I'm not
Well, I think you're
probably take the lead.
You're right, Michael. But it is like we did kind of expect this Obama, connected person to have a little bit better of a perspective and record on this. I think that was the point.
I'll also point out to the asset forfeiture language, which was championed by Democrat Jeff Irwin as well as some others. And if we look at the person who's likely to pick up the mantle of liberalism and marijuana laws after Jeff Irwin's absence, it's another Democrat, Yusuf Rabi. So,
and he did have a House resolution last week for the federal government to respect state rights.
I can appreciate when you look for accomplishments, it might be a very skimpy list. But if we're trying to decide which of the two parties is more likely to try and rein in them, that's what I'm thinking.
The most recent poll demonstrated.
I was not supporting either. I was more of an anti-party, and really just to make the point, Rick, that you and Chad agree on that. Mm-hmm. That's all. That was the main point of all that.
Chad's a smart guy. I'm sure that happens a lot more than we recognize. I hear Chad laughing in the background. He's been kibitzing on you.
I didn't hear Chad. I'm hearing Steve a lot, though.
What's going on?
Chad and Rick are agreeing. We just want to make it clear from the area. They don't know. I mean, I've made it happen. Went a long way to make it happen.
That's right. Sure.
Nice. Well, I think we're about ready to wrap this one up, Michael. Very much appreciate it. I've been hoping that it would come together, that you would have the ability and time to call in and discuss some stuff with us and participate a little bit. Thank you very much. And everybody should check out the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association.org for various reasons, plus the Super PAC, Putting Patients First, Camorran Law, and Planet Green Trees, and all the associated social media platforms. And when you need a criminal defense lawyer for one of these issues, you can't do any better than Michael Camorran. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy it.
Take care. When he first announced the name of the PAC, I swear I thought he said putting patients first. Like you're putting patients into pudding, like a big old tapioca kind of a bath.
Like medicated.
Delicious. So supplying the pudding for the hospital food tray for patients.
Just the way my mind wanders sometimes, I guess. That's all.
Just filling needs.
What a great segment with Michael. That was awesome.
Wonderful.
Well, he's been meaning to try to do that for a while, and it finally worked out, and I'm happy, and hopefully it'll happen again.
Well, we have it's for some of the listeners that might just be Cabbage Cafe fans and not familiar with Planet Green Trees. Jamie and I were on that program for a number of years. I started in radio prior to PGT with a medical marijuana radio show, and some of the works I did with Steve Green on traditional radio on DTW and WTKG and WFNT.
Terrestrial radio show.
One
of the few.
And these guys were doing Planet Green Trees radio shows, and I sort of morphed from one to the other, and for a while I did both shows, but the other one just sort of croaked out, and Planet Green Trees is still going strong. What is it, like 7 freaking years now?
Yeah, and it's the most important consistent archive of the history of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan that there is, I think.
When you talk about longevity of anything, 7 years is a long time, especially considering it's a non-revenue generating idea. I mean, they don't sell advertising space. There's no corporate sponsors. There's no real influence from the outside world controlling what topics are talked about or what the caliber or the timbre of the conversation is. And nowadays, to do something for that long without corruptive influence, that's fucking special.
Yeah, we got corrupted here early on.
Well,
Well, you're very corruptible, Jamie.
Jamie was the corruptor.
Oh,
hey, we're going to hear from Rick in a little bit with some of the heavy news stories concerning our issues in a few minutes. But let's get back to what you guys are up to. What kind of interests are you taking of note supporting candidates or being involved in any political functions or anything like that?
Right. Well, Dana Nessel for sure is like one thing that I've kind of been trying to get out there in my like young Democrat community. So me and Zara recently were asked by a couple state representatives to get young people involved in politics in Dearborn and Downriver communities. So one thing is I was trying to get people to register to go to the Democratic Convention on April 15th. You have to be registered with the Democratic Party for at least a month prior to this.
To vote.
So by about March 15th or so? March 14th.
Now, if you want to attend the convention and not vote, you can still show up on the very day of and still get credentialed in. But the voting opportunity is the most important one because people that cast votes at that convention will have a chance to vote for either Patrick Miles or for Dana Nessel.
And we've said it here before. Dana is inspiring many people, myself, an independent, some people such as Tim Beck, a Republican, some disgruntled Dems who haven't really given a shit about participating in the past too much, now getting a little bit more inspired to want to be more involved because of the energy she's bringing and the kind of the refreshing approach and the integrity that she has, and we know that she'll line up with the things that we need, you know.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of cool. I would hope that the Democrats kind of like want to ride that a little bit and take advantage of that energy at some point.
They need to. I swear, if they pick another loser candidate, and we end up with God knows what.
Well, 2018 will be a year where there's a lot of governors up, and there'll be a lot of other races too. If what we see nationally is that the Dems make big wins everywhere except for Michigan, then it'll really be the fault of the people, you know, in the Democratic Party who didn't capitalize on an opportunity. Here in Michigan, the Republican Party's come under some major scrutiny because of the Flint water crisis and some of the other things that have gone on too. Bill Schuette has unsuccessfully challenged several laws all the way to the United States Supreme Court and got his ass kicked.
You know, we didn't say it before, but in addition to the conversation before, he's kept prosecutors on cases way past the point where they have an ability to win the case, just to stretch it out as far as they can possibly.
Is it so ironic too that Dana's running for AG after what he did with her case?
Yeah, because
so ironic.
Dana also, she just like when she comes into these clubs, she's not just talking about marijuana. She's talking about every single issue,
right?
Yep.
And like the way she like grabs the crowd's attention too is like astonishing.
And the people know her.
Yeah,
they know her. She's been in the news. They know her.
Well, even if they don't, though, you can recognize a bullshitter from a mile away, right? But you can also recognize someone
from a Patrick Miles away.
Nice, very good. That was outstanding. That was credit on that one, Jay. So we'll give Jamie a little chuck on the board. But you can also tell someone who's genuine, though, right? I mean, you really can. You can see directly into their soul sometimes, and they open up, and you know that what they're saying is what they truly feel. So in a time where we're consumed by politicians who lie out of both sides of their mouth, it's refreshing. People pick up on that. And you know what? That's energetic. I'm hoping that between now and April 15th, when the convention convenes, she's able to get a lot more public appearances because everybody that sees her, I think, loves her.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Get registered by the March 14th.
Yes.
Let's throw one in.
Don't wait that long. Do it now.
Wait that long.
Because you'll be freaking out. Where's
throw
my
one
card?
in right here,
right
before the news. Coming up on Saturday, I'll be involved in an event with her with the Minority for Medical Marijuana group, headed up by Margot Bruner, Detroit. She'll be on a panel, and we're going to discuss cannabis issues with Earl Carruthers as well. But later on that night, she'll be at the Northwest Activity Center, and Patrick Miles will be there as well. And the reports are, when they're in the same room together, it's pretty obvious who the superior candidate is.
Are they going to fight?
No.
I've seen him in the same room
She's just going to be a lot more sensible and understanding of issues, and be more genuine to people, and demonstrate that she's the better candidate. I think that's the report I get, and that's the feeling I get from her whenever I heard her speak on the issues.
You know, I know that there's been very few opportunities for the two of them to have a direct on-camera conversation about the same issue. And I think that's because if I was Patrick Miles' campaign advisor, I would tell him, don't engage that woman, because if she kicks your ass on camera, ouch.
I'm interested to see that's going to be an event in Detroit, though, right?
Yes,
That-
same
that's
night,
gonna be
actually same night
interesting,
of
yeah.
my legalized networking thing in Novi, but that, of course, could be of
Yeah,
interest
I'm
for many
interested.
people.
And the
It's-
next day, there's another debate, though, too, at the Detroit Plumbers Union Hall. But it's in Madison Heights there. I don't know what the streets.
That's
it's
probably off 12 Mile right
yeah,
there.
it's off
Madison
12.
Heights.
You can
Yeah.
see it from the freeway.
It's over
So
by
I'm sure
the
these
United
things are,
Food and
are
Commercial
on
Workers
are on
Union
Dana's
Hall.
website and or like social media platforms, and the details can be found there. Maybe
It's the
even
Plumbers
before
and
the end of
Pipe
the show, we'll
Fitters
even try to
Union
find
Hall.
some.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
you know.
we'll bring it up. And with
Yeah,
that,
in there.
So we're ready to. Maybe-
originally I had this into breaking news sound. Never came up, so I hit the.
Well, I thought you were able to pick up on what was going on inside of Rick's head.
I am one of the Mario brothers now, I guess.
And now, the news at 5 with Rick Thompson.
Oh, hey, everybody. It
Ricardo.
is the news. I'm Rick Thompson. Oh, my gosh. It's sometime in January 2018. Holy crap. Let's talk about a bunch of news today. How about should marijuana be legal in Michigan? 57% of our state voters say yes, according to a new Local 4 Detroit News poll published just today. And 36.7% oppose the issue. 56.6% of voters support the issue. About 7% of voters were undecided. The strongly oppose and strongly support is very interesting. 37.8 strongly support, 29 strongly oppose. That's a much larger core group of people that are willing to say they'll vote yes under any conditions than those that would oppose. Here's another interesting statistic. Among strong Democratic people, they support it at 71.5% rate. Even strong GOP supporters support the proposal for legalization of marijuana in Michigan at 43.5%. Here's another one. This was really interesting. 47.5% of voters in the survey said they had tried marijuana, and of them, 73% said they would vote for legalization. That's a really telling statistic. Just like we mentioned at the beginning of the show, when you look at people that have been lied to by the government, they know you can never lie to them again. Oh, another Michigan story. Very few medical marijuana applications turned in so far for the MMFLA program. More than 600 people have started the process of getting a medical marijuana license through the state of Michigan, but only 20 have filed completed applications, including approval from local communities for their cannabis business, a little bit more than 1 month after the start of application submission. That's really low. The slow pace is the result of a number of factors, including continued confusion over state laws, city and towns slow to enact ordinances, lingering uncertainty over how stringent federal authorities will enforce laws that still consider cannabis an illegal drug. Andrew Brisboe, our friend, director of the State Bureau of Medical Marijuana, said it's definitely lower than we expected, discussing the rate of application turn-in. In addition to the 20 applications that have received municipal approval, 123 more people have turned in pre-qualification applications, allowing the state to begin background checks while entrepreneurs await approval from the town in which they want to locate. Speaking of a town in which you want to locate, apparently Windsor Township might be a good choice for you. Windsor Township, Michigan hosts Harvest Park. That is a 130-acre medical marijuana industrial park development in Eaton County, west of Lansing, Michigan. Eaton County. That would be Senator Jones's territory. That announces Phase 2 is now available. Why Phase 2? Because Phase 1 sold the F out. Phase 1, which was announced in November of 2017, has already sold out all 10 lots on 63 acres. Now they've opened up an adjacent 67 acres for the next phase of the township development. All of those people buying that property before they get state authorization. What do they know that we don't? Now, Jeff Donahue, managing director of the Harvest Park Development, said, "We're thrilled at how quickly Harvest Park is developing." I bet you are. Harvest Park selected the Lansing Board of Water and Light to provide water and electricity. Oh, there you go. Now we know why. Somebody gets paid. Bureau of Water and Light is taking advantage of the development to expand its solar energy program as recommended by a citizens advisory committee that conducted its long-term integrated resource plan in 2016. Additional solar energy, which will be adjacent to the park, will support the southwest side of Borden Water and Light service territory, and the solar power capacity will complement existing infrastructure and will be online by 2020. See, the cannabis industry provides solutions all over the place. Now, here's a final couple of stories about legalization. We talked earlier at the program beginning about Vermont legalizing through legislative process. Yay, Vermont! But how about some other 2018 prospects? Rhode Island, for heck. Last year, lawmakers in Rhode Island debated a bill that would legalize cannabis. That's the third time in 3 years that the state has introduced a cannabis legalization bill. It died in committee, but supporters remain undeterred. In recent months, members of a state commission have visited with Colorado officials to learn how they implemented legal sales, and they are on track to initiate another legalization bill. Of course, here in Michigan, our state's Committee to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol has submitted petition signatures, and we are waiting any day now to receive the positive news about that. How about New Jersey with the fat man, Republican Governor Chris Christie out of there? It seems legal pot is on its way in because Democratic Governor-elect Phil Murphy, who's a former Goldman Sachs executive, pledged to sign legislation into law that would allow for the possession and sale of recreational cannabis. The Democrats control the legislature in that state, and they could have a bill passed by early spring, which could reckon for them about $300 million in tax revenue every year. Also on the East Coast, Connecticut. Lawmakers in support of cannabis legalization have said that they don't want to lose tax dollars to Massachusetts, so they have 4 different bills to legalize and tax the sale of cannabis. Each of these bills from last year died in committee this year, but once again, these legalization bills have been vowed to be reintroduced. 2018, not such a sleeping year for cannabis legalization as many may have thought. Folks, that is the news. I'm Rick Thompson, and thank you so much for listening to the Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Good deal.
I love the applause at the end.
I think we
there.
might even we should be looking at a possible little break just to kind of reset, prepare for the end of the show with the Shri.
Well, I hope our
gubernatorial
listeners.
candidate.
Oh, what time is Shri coming
Yeah,
on
what
again,
time
Jamie?
is Shri Tandon?
About 5:30.
Ooh.
That's good. You know, just a little bit of background before we go to break about Shri, while I do this little thing here that I'm doing. He is a self-made millionaire. Made $1 million, lost it, and then made another $1 million.
Oh, hello.
So he's produced a book. He gave me a signed copy of his book called The Blue Suitcase when I emceed the gubernatorial candidates debate.
I have a copy of that book myself.
Yep. And so he's really kind of an interesting figure. When you talk about being able to support your own candidacy through your own wealth, that makes me nervous, generally speaking. But, you know, when you listen to the guy talk, he seems like he may bring a breath of common sense and fresh air to
If one is sincere and if one really wants to fight the establishment, then you should be pretty resourceful to take that challenge on, and that's what he's doing. And his story starts with coming over to the country with nothing and creating all these opportunities for himself.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen a lot of persons with similar stories come into politics recently. I think the American public is a lot more accepting than we were, let's say, 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. And instead of just being a local regional candidate, I think some folks that had a limited political career in the past are seeing greater opportunity now. That's part of what America is. It disturbs me about our current proposed immigration proposal from our glorious Hitler Trump, because, you know, America always has been bring us you're tired, you're wretched, you're poor. And now when I hear things like if they're illiterate, we're not going to let them in, or we're going to have quotas, or we're going to have a merit-based consideration of who gets in and who doesn't, that worries the hell out of me. Apparently I'm the only one that's worried about it.
I'm scared.
I'm scared too.
I wasn't paying attention at all. I'm sorry.
I believe
Word
that.
You said.
You were staring at something I don't want to know about.
Well, I hope you guys are with us when we come back. We're going to be gone for about a couple minutes here, enjoying ourselves, so you should do the same thing.
I started my break early.
We are back. The Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Thanks for sticking with us. What's up? What are we gonna talk about now?
That's that new Judas
We're
Priest
back.
song,
It's
isn't
Judas.
it? That's the new Judas Priest.
Yeah, I didn't want to correct you on the air.
One day I'll come in dressed like Rob Alford and all leather with, big chaps and stuff.
Do it, man. Please do it.
Wow. That was too enthusiastic, actually. Now I'm uncomfortable.
I got a camera here, man.
Jamie's going to be jealous.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
So I'm incredibly scruffy for all the listeners. I haven't shaved in like a while, so I've got all this growth on my face and sort of intentional. I set a personal goal for myself, and even though I met it, I decided I didn't want to shave my face so much. So I'm rugged and ragged. But then Jamie walks in and Jerk's got the same shit going on.
They're
his face.
burly.
It's their New Year's resolution.
Oh my god.
Everybody in
It's
the room
radio.
We're
except
trying
for
to
Z
get
and
Velcro our
myself
faces
are
together.
covered in
Too
hair, right?
similar.
Look at their faces.
Something's
they
gonna
all
change.
have
Cold
beards.
outside.
Yeah, I'm in theme.
We're the only ones who don't.
They're both equally gray. It's like
It's winter.
wow.
Who gives a shit?
You know, I got a haircut, so I got short in the back, and that makes it cold. So I'm leaving it on the face.
There you go. Reverse mullet.
I don't know. That'd be interesting. Have a chin wave over your shoulder. Right. Nice.
A lot of guys have a braid coming down.
Dude, some of
That'd
the
be
beards
awesome.
folks have right
It's like
now.
a Viking look, right?
Some of the beards are really awesome, and I'll say that Chris and Colin both have great looking beards going on. And
Well done, boys.
Derek is trying, and I'm just
I try to keep mine.
I don't know. Derek's looks pretty
No
good
shave.
from here. I
Derek
don't
looking
know.
okay, man. Yep. It's
Mine's
What
done
did
by
we
a
say last week?
professional. Shout out.
Party in the front, business in the back.
oh my god.
Is that what they said last week?
I think
Your
that's what- I
business
think-
is in the
I thi-
back?
I think
Maybe
somebody
what?
said that last week. If I'm
That's
not
Bill
mistaken.
Schuette's motto. Anyway, I don't want to go there.
This time it's party in the front, business in the back. Ooh. Sweet.
I don't want anybody's back
Radio life.
business. I don't want to know about your business of your back end. So we have a
We do talk
gubernatorial
about weed.
candidate, Shri Tanandar, going to call in. We mentioned a couple of times the candidate forum that was sponsored by Am I Legalized that we had at the wonderful place, the Sidetrack Grill in Ypsilanti. Jamie, we've done a lot of things at the Sidetrack Grill in Ypsilanti, haven't we?
We have.
That's
Linda French, who owns it, is very politically active and likes to help out. She often offers her space and sometimes donates food and other things to help facilitate these meetings, and she helped us out that night.
Yep. I mean, we had, I think, 5 candidates for governor, including a Republican. All showed up. Gretchen Whitmer, Bill Cobbs, Evan Space. You know, so we did very well. Abu Sayed was there, who's a doctor, former chief of the Detroit Medical Center.
He's gotten some big endorsements so far.
Yep. So we have a robust spate of candidates that really are interested in talking about cannabis this year. And that's what makes anybody that's unwilling to talk about cannabis this year stand out in a negative way. Because if all you do is offer lip service, then we don't really want to hear your junk anymore. We just were speaking off camera about some of the letters that folks have received from, United States congressional representatives for the state of Michigan, or even some of our in-state representatives, and they're so weak. They're so, so non-committal as to really be out of place and out of time. In 2018, I think we're going to punish your ass. I think you're going to lose.
There's a lot of us out there, and we vote.
Hey, so before Shri comes on, I was also speaking with Zahara, and she's involved with some other organizations, not directly involved with cannabis, but also very important with their specific condition, and they have attitudes about cannabis and are seeing this stuff work, and she's obtained a position. So you explain the organization and what you're going to be doing there and what they're about, if you don't mind.
The Epilepsy Foundation of Michigan is kind of like educates people about epilepsy, advocates for them, and puts on a lot of programs for them, because they see a lot of patients who have epilepsy who started on cannabis. So they've taken the effort to educate people, put on either a panel to talk about medical cannabis and epilepsy, and also some like learn and share conference calls. And also, once they heard about the potential of dispensaries closing down, they sent people to Lansing to talk to the board, so that their patients can still have support.
Nice. So that's awesome, because they saw it working. They didn't question much else about it. They see their people benefiting from it and say, we have to support this without the extra politics or crap that may happen in other organizations and things politically, and stopping people from getting the help that they need.
And they've spoken in more than just license control board meetings, too. I've been in House meetings, House committee meetings, where we've seen Epilepsy Foundation persons stand up and speak positively on pro-cannabis legislation.
And somebody from the foundation will also be speaking at Hash Bash.
Great. Good.
And so you've entered into like an internship with the organization?
Yeah, like right now I'm looking for a job. So, but when they told me about an internship, it's just I really love volunteering over there. So like doing this was like exciting for me. So just like getting things mailed out, entering people's addresses, just some things with the foundation. So I go there 2 days a week now.
Get your foot in the door.
That's great, though.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, that's a big, strong voice in our favor, and it's one that comes with automatic credibility. When you hear about the Epilepsy Foundation, you don't question whether they're coming from a position of science because you know they are. So it's a very nice thing. Yep. So.
Well, that's great. I wanted to make sure that we talked about that a little bit because that's one of the excellent efforts that she's involved in.
There are a lot of different organizations coming to Michigan and starting things up.
Well, the MS organizations are involved too. They have also accepted the science of cannabis.
Yeah, I know our friend of the show, Q, Ann Quinette Jameson. She's also involved in the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation too, and she's very active in the Detroit community. And from the interviews I've read in the newspaper, it seems like she may have secured a license for the city of Detroit.
She has.
Yeah.
I believe for a grow operation and a dispensary, and I know she's interested in medibles. She's been researching and things of this nature. Yeah, she's going to have quite an operation.
And here's a woman.
Good for her. She's terrific.
She is.
Yeah,
here's a woman who was a former Fox News anchor here in the city of Detroit, a legitimate patient, multiple sclerosis. Talk about a fantastic person to be a spokesperson for the community. Zara's done a good job recently being a spokesperson for the community too, representing us in places that that are necessary for that voice to be heard.
She's been all around the state and now for a while. No?
You know it. And Colin's been busting his ass. MI legalized 2 times now, 2016, 2018.
We're not finished yet.
Yeah, we're not. We're not. So you still have some ass left to bust. Yeah. Okay, good. But the fact being that
what?
When we look at John Schlicker, here's another gentleman who collected a ton of signatures for MI legalized. Chuck Vosel, who we're supposed to say congratulations, Daddy.
Yeah,
right? Chuck. So we really see some people that have been putting in some sweat equity on this issue to advance marijuana law reform. And it's not just the people that have big dollars that can afford to pay, Dyke and McGossett or can afford to pay Honigman, to come in kind of as a after all the real hard work is done, come in and maybe influence some legislators to get something passed and then try and put their name on a bill. We see that. There's plenty of that. It'll always take place. But those of us that were in the trenches remember who was sitting with us side by side.
Yeah.
It's been a long time now.
I know.
We're on the verge of this emerging industry.
Look,
and this is real. It's getting real.
Look at the benchmarks that we've had, though. I mean, the Walsh bills were both some bit positive, some bit negative. That was 2012. That was the first effort to fuck with the law. We got 2014.
Hello, this is Sri Tanadar.
Hey, Sri. All right.
Welcome to the program. Welcome to the Jazz Cabbage Cafe.
Thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, you're on the air right now, and really appreciate the fact that you have some time to spend with us today. And I was able to see you and hear your views Saturday night in Okemos at a MI Legalized networking event, and I was really impressed. I was particularly impressed about one of the things that you had to say, but please, if you don't mind, let us know why we should support you in this cannabis community.
Well, sure. I am a progressive candidate. I am perhaps the most progressive gubernatorial candidate and the only gubernatorial candidate that voted for Bernie Sanders. Okay. And I think I look at the marijuana legalization from 2 points of view. The major issue is, I'm a scientist. I'm a PhD chemist. And I look at science, and I look at the scientific research done on cannabis and the medicinal effects of it and the usefulness of it and how it has provided relief to a number of medical conditions. So I think, and I also look at it from personal freedom point of view, and it is important that if that is the desire of a large majority of Michiganders, then we must honor that. And so I am fully, wholeheartedly, and proud to support legalization of recreational marijuana. And I think the revenues that it will generate will help improve our education system, help provide the needed funds in for roads and infrastructure improvement.
That's right, and appreciate that view and understanding. Going on to understand what it means. That's why a lot of us really like to hear you talk about this issue, and appreciate your support. Now, you said you went on Saturday night to mention that you would consider looking at people who have had cannabis convictions over the years, and maybe define exactly what you mean by that. But
Sure. Be happy to.
Sure.
One of the problems we have is our criminal justice system. Michigan spends way too much money on prisons. Over $2 billion are spent on our correction system. And what I find is that a lot of, the amount of money we spend per prisoner is about $40,000 a year. And the amount of money we spend per student is about $9,000 a year, which to me doesn't make any sense. So we need to decriminalize marijuana. There is no reason for people, non-violent offenders, to be spending time for small possession issues. And I would like to look into, as a governor, I would like to look into legalities of, pardoning some of the non-violent offenders.
Yes.
So I would seriously look into that, and as part of the decriminalization effort, I want to help, give people a second chance. And I want to help the returning citizens acquire skill sets, whether it's technical education, vocational skills, so that they can become productive members of the society.
No, that's excellent. That really stood out to me when you talked about that the other night, and I'm glad that you went through that again for us. So you brought up many other things in your platform, kind of related with social justice issues and environmental issues. You want to throw in a couple of those aside from cannabis that people may want to consider with your candidacy?
Yes. And, people can see more of that on my website. My website is Shri, my first name, SHRI, 2018.com, Shri2018.com. And you can see in our Facebook is Shri for MI. So you could see the various videos and information that we have on our Facebook and on our website. But I am really concerned about the quality of water in Michigan. We are a beautiful state. We have great natural resources, and we need to protect those. And that starts with keeping our Great Lakes clean and pure. And to that end, I will shut down Line 5, Enbridge Line 5, which is a ticking time bomb. This is a pipeline that's more than 60 years old, and we cannot afford to have that pipeline bust and contaminate the Great Lakes. So I would immediately want to shut that down. I want to close down for-profit charter schools. It is my opinion and belief that no corporation should profit, including people like Betsy DeVos, to profit from public school dollars. And so I would not allow for-profit charter schools. I will put more money into our education system, and I support strongly a single-payer health care system. We need to take care of Michiganders. We need to do increased coverage because both education and health care is not a privilege. It is a fundamental right of every Michigander, and we need to work towards making education accessible and making education affordable, so regardless of a family's financial strength. And I want to, same way, make health care a human right and be available to Michiganders.
That's excellent. You also mentioned a story about recognizing those who have supported you and utilizing some of the revenue generation from your company to really demonstrate to those who have been a part of your team, how much that means to you. And I think that helps put into perspective what kind of guy you are. I was impressed by that.
Oh, thank you for saying that. Nowadays it has become very fashionable to talk about being progressive, but I think it's important to see what kind of a life a person has lived. And I grew up in poverty. Education was the ladder for my success, and I've achieved my American dream, but the American dream is fading for too many people, and it's fading all over Michigan. So because this country and this great state of ours has given me so much, I am motivated to give back. I want to give back to Michigan. And as a part of that, I had a very good, profitable business that I sold last year, 2 years ago. And I took $1.5 million of that money and I distributed to all of my 50 employees. And when companies are sold, usually the presidents and the CFOs get the big money. The way I distributed this money was distributed not on their title or their position, but based more on the length of service. So Katie, my administrative assistant who worked the longest, got $107,000 bonus. And many other people got such bonuses that too. And that was my way of thanking them and honoring them for being part of our success story.
I don't think that kind of thing happens enough, and I think that helps to put in perspective you put your money where your mouth is, and appreciate it. And I really appreciate, as we have to wrap this up, your attention to detail of understanding the issues of legalization and your support for it. And when we were crafting the CRMLA, the legalization proposal that we're waiting to get word from the Secretary of State to officially be on the ballot, we wanted to include expungement. But it turned out by evaluation of some of the elections attorneys and so forth that it leaves it too risky for challenges. And so it was not included. So your discussion of looking at the pardons for cannabis convictions under certain circumstances is something that's very appealing, I think, to a lot of us, and that's appreciated as well. You let people know how they can get in touch with you, how they can help you out, where you may be soon, and anything else that you'd like to say.
Well, the best thing to do would be to reach our website, SHRI 2018, SHRI2018.com, or our Facebook, SHRI for MI. But we're looking for volunteers. We're looking for a lot of help because I am fighting an establishment candidate. And I think it is important that Democrats win the 2018 gubernatorial election so we can take the state back, move it from all the way to the right that the Republicans have taken this to a more progressive state, a more inclusive state, because we want to make sure our economy works for all of us, not just the top 1%. So we would like help. We would like any donations, any volunteering, anything that you could do to make help us win this Democratic primary and also help us beat Attorney General Bill Schuette so that we can bring progressive ideas and make Michigan a progressive state.
Yes. No BS.
Good.
Yes.
No
Good.
BS.
No BS.
For sure.
So, hey, thank you very much, Shri. We wish you the best. We're going to check in with you, keep updated. Hopefully, you'll be back on. I know we'll cross paths at some events, and we really appreciate your message and your support for our issue. Thank you very much.
Very proud to do that. Very, very happy and very proud to do that. Good luck with everything and getting it on the ballot and passing it. And I will, as a governor, I will always be supportive.
Excellent. Thank you very much again, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was pretty cool. I mean, hopefully we'll have some other gubernatorial candidates on, and all of them, as Rick said during the event that we had in Ypsilanti, did express support for cannabis. Shree's pretty detailed about why he supports. He is a chemist. He says he's looked at it from a scientific perspective. He looks at it from a human rights perspective or civil rights perspective as well. So he explains why he supports it. And unlike some candidates who say things like, well, just let the people vote, and I'll just respect what the people vote and stuff. And so that doesn't work. We need people that get a little bit deeper into there and explain why they may be in support of our issue and demonstrate a little bit more of an understanding of what this is about. And I think Shri does a good job of that and continues to learn about it as he shows up and talks to many of us. The pardon thing is a big thing. If nothing else, we can show the other candidates that this is what your opponents are doing, and you should meet this standard. That's something that appeals to us. And so hopefully we'll hear some of that discussion by the other Democrat gubernatorial candidates as we go along.
Well, I think it's not a Democratic issue anymore either. Jamie, you've talked about this before.
Well, Bill Schuette's not going to adopt that.
No, he's not.
That attitude, so that's why I kind of bypassed that discussion. But I understand. You're right.
And the point being is that when there's a conversation about marijuana law reform, I think we win because science is on our side, history is on our side, and public opinion's on our side. So when Bill Schuette is the only guy afraid to address the issue, he stands out by his refusal. When Patrick Miles is unprepared to affect a good debate on that issue, then he stands out by his incompetence. So it's the standard now to know about cannabis. You can't get into politics and not know about this subject anymore. Used to be the ugly stepchild. You knew it was out there, but you always ignored it. And the DEA would publish these statistics saying Michigan sold more cannabis than any other state in the Midwest.
So again, a candidate's not very astute if they're not prepared for this issue, no matter where they may personally stand on it at the moment. I think Patrick Miles is seeing that. I mean, there's going to be legalization on the ballot in 2018 that's going to be appealing to a lot of voters. To not try to figure out a way to tap into that, it doesn't make any sense. It means you're not paying attention.
And one of the guys we haven't mentioned tonight, Sam Pernick. Sam set up the candidates forum that we talked about in Ypsilanti. He also set up the forum that we're doing in the 11th District on Saturday, and several others too. I mean, these are well attended. People are coming, and candidates are interested in showing up and lending their voice to this. It's a revolution, man.
Yeah, there's several candidates that are out there still and that have been trying to contact us to be on these forums and whatnot. Because me and Zara have met a couple other lower Republican candidates who've shown up at our normal meeting and who
libertarian minded.
Libertarian candidates and
sure.
Independent candidate too.
Mm-hmm.
Now the radio show that's on immediately following our show a couple weeks ago had a candidate for governor that they were interviewing in studio too. Isn't that correct, Jamie?
Yeah, he was Republican, libertarian minded Republican.
Right.
I had his card, but I can't think of his name at the moment.
Was it Earl Lackey?
In fact, I think it was Earl Lackey.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
He's
right.
kind of doesn't have any political experience. Very.
He's like an electrician or a plumber or something.
Well, he's a gubernatorial candidate.
Yeah.
yeah. But the fact is, you're seeing a lot more
He's
people.
anti-establishment, though. I mean, that's
Pretty
appealing.
anti-establishment.
A lot more people are coming out. And it used to be, and Deborah, I know you'll back me up on this, it used to be either you were a Republican or a Democrat or you were a nobody cares.
That was it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Choice.
now you're seeing third-party candidates emerge. And, I mean, the Republican Party's not just one homogenous party anymore. You got the Tea Party guys. You got the Freedom Caucus. You got all different
this cannabis
shades.
bloc gets behind those who get behind us. And
Yes.
in this case, it's Dana. And that's why Republicans and independents are coming into the fold in the Democratic Party to support her.
Yeah, we see, but
We'll support Republicans, too, who make it clear that they understand our issue and are in support of what we're trying to do. And
my point is that nowadays we have a culture that allows people more of a freedom to express what they really felt, and they're not trying to color within the lines of what we traditionally define as Republican or Democrat. And so as these people express their true independent streaks and their true independent thought processes, they find that they have a lot more allies than they ever thought they would, because society suppressed thoughts of positivity towards cannabis and towards LGBT issues and towards, emancipation from the government and stopping asset forfeiture and right-sizing the drug war and addressing police misconduct and, protecting domestic violence victims. Those things were something everybody always supported, but no one would ever put legislation on because they always felt there would be a backlash. Well, now those are mainstream issues, and we don't see a backlash. We see support. So,
people wanting the endorsement of us, and I think that there's been some demonstration that we have an effect.
Yeah.
And since the Layton election, Layton and Bill Schuette, the first time that Bill Schuette won office, we backed him very hard. We campaigned for him, raised a bunch of money for him.
Him being Layton.
Yeah, David Layton, the Genesee County prosecutor. And because obviously we didn't want Bill Schuette to be Attorney General. It was, going to be impossible, as proven, to beat him. But, the disparity between the victory of Verge Monero and Schneider was a more narrow gap between Layton and Schuette.
Yep, Schuette barely won in a clearly Republican-dominated election where we saw a change in the guard nationally. Republicans took over Democratic legislatures in other states too. But yeah,
and Miles is getting some issues from the LGBTQ community and from some other issues, not just the cannabis thing, but the Okemos 7 thing is resonating with a lot of people and upsetting a lot of people.
We take that personally. We know these people.
I know.
This is personal.
We talk about the Forsbergs and Ryan Basor, and these are people that you can put faces to names. Right. And this is a story that happened right quickly. Rainbow Farm may be something that we forget about here because it's been so long ago.
And it took place during 9/11, so it got a little drowned out in the news.
Yep, and it was a Jennifer Granholm governor at that particular time. But the fact is, the Okemos 7 happened just 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So this is still fresh in our memory. And this is, like the Kettle Falls 5 in Washington, the Okemos 7, the Lansing 7, this was a national story. It was big. This is government. This is federal government overreach. And you know what? In 2015, 16, 17, 18 America, government gone bad stories, they play really well in social media. They get a lot of reshares, they get a lot of likes, they get a lot of play, and it influences big local media. So they cover things more readily when they see that there's a social media following for the subject. So when this happened and it was so clear to us that it was an overreach on the part of the feds, there was a lot of outrage. Our going away party for the Forsbergs and for our good friend Basor at the Gone Wired Cafe in Lansing, that was a really big event.
Boogie Bob was playing some music.
Yes.
Attorney Bob Baldori.
Yeah.
Who's also an excellent piano player, keyboard player.
From that meeting, Jeff Hank, at that point, I think, decided to decrim Lansing and East Lansing at that meeting. He was just a young punk then, and now he's a seasoned veteran. He's got a couple wins under his belt, and he's
been a congressional candidate.
Yep, he's done a lot of stuff since then. But if you look at the pictures from them, he was full of piss and vinegar, and he had a lot of enthusiasm, and he went out and turned it into some successful campaigns, just like the lady to my left, Deborah Young.
Yeah, and we haven't said it for a while, but Deborah headed up an effort to get some type of more sensible policy, legalization-esque policy in all of Oakland County's southern cities, all in a particular state district.
Right.
Yeah. Pleasant Ridge.
We did the whole district.
Yeah. Huntington Woods.
Sure did.
Yeah. Oak Park, Ferndale.
Kind of lay the groundwork for the eventual statewide.
There ought to be no question, and there's 20-some of those all around the state, and they all won by nice margins.
Nice margins, huge margins.
And the one in Lansing was one of the lowest at Flint was one of the lowest at like 57, but that was also like at 19 and not 21. They even knew in Flint that there was so much support that you could make it even more.
Well, the funny thing about that is so many citizens in Michigan think that recreational is legal because of these initiatives that we had in cities. They say, well, isn't it already legal?
Yeah.
I say no.
When we talk about the number, we forget Lapeer voted no by just a matter of a few votes.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was a handful.
it's
crazy.
literally enough that if you put forth a little bit more effort on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, you could have turned the tide. So not to point out negativity, but that could have been another one there too.
I think it was a difference if 4 people would have voted the other way.
Just
That would've-
ridiculous. Just a small margin, and that really underscores how important it is for everyone to vote, not just in the national elections and not just when there's a school millage that affects your kids, but every single time there's an opportunity to come to the polling place. Educate yourself on the issues and vote intelligently, but make sure that your voice is heard because, man, the margin between good and evil is just that slim.
And to go back over what Colin said a little while ago, we need people to come in from all around the political spectrum to help support Dana. Not only do we help out our own issue, but we actually return integrity to an office that's been without it for a long time, and that helps everybody. And that has to be done by joining the Democratic Party before March 14th to be able to show up at the convention in Detroit, Cobo Hall, and participate in voting to endorse Dana as the Attorney General. And if we're successful in doing that, then we worry about taking on the Republican candidate. And in this year, if the right momentum gets going and the right reactions that seem to be kind of in the air and that we've seen in other states, maybe we have a team of some strong women taking the helm for a while and helping to right the ship a little bit. And I'm all for that. I think they are the best. They're all women, and they also turn out to be the best candidates for the effort. When
you start talking about needing new voices and new visions, one thing that's really been lacking is a female voice. I'm not one of those people that thinks your gender determines your quality or your qualification, but in this instance,
many people have made that clear.
We just have a whole bunch of women that are just eminently qualified that have all been able to step up and be ready for the role.
Underrepresented for sure.
I know. Yep. So
the numbers are sitting there. It's pretty obvious. There's not as many as there should be, but hopefully
not by our choice.
Hopefully tide is
you guys have been pushing us down.
Look at the Senate.
We're
look at the House of Representatives. There's really hardly any women in the Michigan legislature. It's really poorly represented, and I think when you start looking at how what percentage of people vote in the United States of America, women vote a lot.
Well, and they're now more inspired, I would say, as evidenced by the women marches in response to a lot of the craziness and bizarre attitudes and approaches and scary things going on this last year.
Don't discount Hillary Clinton's participation too. She made it. A lot of women more politically aware. A lot of women came out to support Hillary, and even though she didn't prevail, she did win the majority of the popular vote in America. So at this particular point, I mean, you have to look at that as a catalyst for a lot of people's personal advocacy.
So we're going to have to wrap up pretty soon. We haven't heard about Chris spout off about some type of extraction or
I honestly don't really have anything this week. It's just been flour for me this week, guys. Yeah.
Sweet. And is that by choice? Is that taking some time off, or is that just not being able to get to your more desired concentrator?
Did your dad rig file for divorce or what?
No. It's just kind of been by choice, honestly. Just kind of been enjoying the...
Smoking big fat joints of flour is my favorite delivery system.
Yep. I think so, at the moment.
That's the way.
You get everything from the plant soon, and I just appreciate it, and it does the job, especially with my condition. And
like to take
so I'd like to do it. And I'm not opposed to the concentrates by any means, but
roll a big snake and put it in the grass.
Depth charge.
Yeah, rolling those snakes.
Rolling
that snake.
Appreciate
the snake. Beautiful stuff.
Hey, thank you guys all for being here today. Thanks to listeners.
Well, Zara and Colin, you guys are welcome anytime you're nearby and you want to come in and be part of the conversation. If you have anything you need to get out, whatever, you know where it is now, so stop in while we're broadcasting.
Right. Our secret location.
Yep.
the Cabbage Cafe. We thank everybody for participating and enjoy your